reminiscing, watching the Power Rangers, sent home for bad behavior, was never scared of the strangers. Never thought I'd make it, making more than I would thought, was so disruptive in that class, what made a misfit most of all. And where I'm from, I'm a statistic. It's rare to see me blossom, especially from the bottom. Right now I'm standing tall. If they say you'll never make it, look them dead in their faces and tell them you're more than amazing despite the things you're faced with. And if they say take it slow, tell them this ain't the Matrix. This is the future in the making. This is more than the days and nights you were slaving trying to make a way in. Trying to find your way out though. Thought it wasn't possible without selling your soul. Thought it wasn't logical, you was all on your own. But it made me stand out. Thinking different made a difference. I could have been gone or been another one in prison. I could have been wrong, but my wrongs turned to rights. And all those right turns left a few people behind. What's on your mind? Let me listen. Think beyond the box. Escape those mental prisons. Like birds in a cage with the thought of being free, the only thing that held me back was the thought of being me. What's stopping you? We have things we have to commit to. Distractions that throw us off focus. Flaws and habits that stop our personal growth. And it always leads me to that question. What is stopping you? I have found 3 key steps that have helped me to think beyond the box. And I'll be sharing those with you today. The first step I'll be sharing with you is the past changes you, but it doesn't define you. At a young age, I was at a crossroads in my life, trying to find myself. With hardly any male role models, and mum mainly at work, I gravitated towards the streets. And I ended up joining a street gang based in Brixton. I did what you would typically do in a gang. Get into trouble, commit crimes. The street life came with a mentality that was hard to shake. A mental box based off ego and bravado. Yes, you are being better than everyone else, but this was not the kind of improvement I was looking for. One of the biggest turning points in my life was experiencing the death of a close friend due to knife crime. My close friend, Eugene Atram, a kind-hearted soul who didn't deserve to die. At the time, I felt alone, I felt angry, but it helped open my eyes to realize the value of life. Instead of living life on the edge, I told myself I deserve more. Not just for me, but for those who saw worth and value in me. It meant having to change my mentality, replacing all the bad thoughts and habits I was so accustomed to from being on the streets. Instead of hanging out late at night, I would come home early. Instead of getting into trouble and committing crimes, I was doing more productive things. The change wasn't easy, and it meant letting go of friends. I learned that your friends influence you in a positive or negative way, and I had to be very mindful of who I had around me at that time. The hardest part was actually putting this into action, and it nearly cost me my life. At a time where stealing phones was very popular, I attended Ernest Bevan College. After school, gangs would pay us a visit, seeing it as an opportunity to rob people. I had built a reputation of the streets, so at the time, I wasn't seen as a target. But a close friend of mine who couldn't defend himself had his phone robbed. The old me wouldn't have cared, but I wanted to get his phone back. The next day, could you imagine, I end up bumping into the same gang in Croydon. And if you've ever been to Croydon, Whitgift, you know how busy it gets. As I'm walking in the same direction as the gang, I noticed 10 of them were talking amongst themselves, saying, "I swear that's that youth that tried to stop us yesterday." At this point, I didn't know what to do. My mind's racing, heart pounding. I'm thinking of so many scenarios. And at this point, I'm with my friends. So I tell my friends, look, go inside the store. Now I have no choice but to defend myself, as I'm now surrounded by the gang. My fist clenched, prepared for what's to come. Security guards stepped in, but it only made matters worse. Crowds started to form. Insults are flying from myself and the gang, and out of nowhere, I get hit in the face by one of the gang members. I'm now having to defend myself in the middle of Croydon. As adrenaline's kicking in and I'm defending myself, I remember hearing the largest gasp from the crowd. I looked down to realize that I got stabbed. The gang fled due to police being called. But for me, this was an emotional moment. I've never been through this before. So many emotions running through me. That day, it helped change my mentality, to escape a mentality that I was trapped in, to not be defined by that past. And it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes. Do something today that your future self can thank you for. And it leads me to my next step. Look beyond the possible. What is possible to some could be seen as an obstacle to many. From being involved in the streets and now seeing new possibilities for the future, I knew I could do more, but I didn't know how. I started to realize I was doubting myself. I was becoming my own worst enemy. Not realizing the relationship you have with yourself is the most important thing in life, and it's something I have to remind myself every day. I was going through a rough patch. From being in a gang and gaining these perks from the streets to now having to start afresh. It felt like I had a dark cloud over my head. That moment of realizing that everything you've worked so hard for, your reputation, is all gone, despite it not being for a positive factor. At this point, I didn't know how I could look beyond. I remember being alone late at night, asking myself, what will it take for me to think beyond this mentality that I'm trapped in? I grabbed a piece of paper and I asked myself, what do I want? Listing my flaws, I realized I was becoming my own worst enemy. Instead of trusting my gut instinct and to pursue the unknown, I was more afraid of what was to come, trapped inside my mental box. Being alone helped me realize that anything is possible. Instead of viewing it as a negative, looking at what I no longer have, the positive was realizing that anything is possible once you put your mind to it. It helped me to escape those mental boxes I was trapped in. That anything is possible once you overcome. And it takes me to my final step. Stretch your abilities. During my growth of looking beyond what was possible, I realized I was doing more, and it required me to stretch my abilities. Sometimes we have to do things we are not used to and actually come out of our comfort zone. My comfort zone for me today is being a creative, being involved in the creative arts and doing music. Take this in for a second. Your comfort zone was once uncomfortable. That thing that you are now used to was once seen as difficult. And it reminds me when I first started doing music. I was never satisfied with anything I made, and I knew that I would have to work much harder to gain a further understanding of being a musician. I took a bold step, and I applied for an unsigned competition organized by Channel 4 and Fiat. It gave someone the opportunity to record music professionally and perform that music live on TV. This was my chance to pursue something I was passionate about, to take a risk, but to also discover myself through music. I remember waking up that morning, and as I was waking up that morning, looking at that email, and as I was reading the email, it said, "You have been chosen as one of the winners for this show." To be honest, I didn't know how to feel. I was excited, but I didn't know if it was a prank, if I was on punked. Reality started to kick in, and I knew I had to deliver. As great as receiving that email, I knew that I had to push myself beyond. That week, it felt like boot camp. I was in a professional studio, but I had to rehearse early mornings, late nights, writing and rewriting to the point I was happy with everything I was doing. Despite the fear of failure and stretching my abilities, It gave me the push I needed to give one of the best performances of my life on live TV. I could have easily let the past of being in a gang define me. I could have been my own worst enemy and not looked beyond. I could have stayed in my comfort zone and not pushed myself and my abilities further. I chose to be more than the limitations that were placed upon me at the time. I chose to push and to think beyond the box, and so can you. I challenge you to think of what your future would be like if you had no boundaries, no limits, and not taking no as an answer. See beyond the boundaries, be beyond the boundaries, think beyond the box. Because if you do, anything is possible. For you, for mankind, and for the future. Thinking different. Future's now in my favor. Embracing all those struggles because I know that it can change us. Escape the mental prison holding more than you can tell. At night would look up at the stars instead of looking at myself. And they're so quick to judge my past. Don't you know what I've accomplished? I know that I will make it. In my heart, I know that one thing. That anything is possible if only you believe. Open up your mind and you might open up your dreams. Stretch what is inside. You might open up your eyes and find the real you all disguised in all those boxes that you keep. So take that step and really try. Change your thoughts and change your mind. We ain't robots in disguise. Take my hand and take this leap. Thank you.